Why corrections?
So I know that this is technically like the first like big job I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Because before I've done like jobs where it's like I guess like retail, or I used to work in my first ever job was a server at a care home facility. So I guess you can kind of see like I don't know like restaurant experience, but you
Mm-hmm.
can also see kind of like care home facility or like a caregiver, because I was a caregiver at one point for when I was living in SoCal, just because um it was expensive living down there, so I kind of needed
Right.
to do that. But off topic, but I think it's because I know that I've always wanted to like help people, and I know that's kind of cliche that people say, but seeing like I wanted like what I went to school for was for psychology, because I wanted to help people in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like a mental capacity. But then I kind of thought like, well, if I wanted to help people, like why not explore different options? You know, like I've always like I guess in a restaurant you're helping people, you're serving them their food. When you're
Right.
being a caregiver, you're obviously helping them with their life and like vitals and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
why not help in terms of like the community? I know that I've only lived here so long, so I wanted to learn more about the community, and what more than to like work for the county, you
Right.
know. And then also like I guess it's a completely different aspect that I would not have considered. Maybe if you asked me like 2 or 3 years ago, I would not
Mm-hmm.
have thought that law enforcement or working for the county would be like an option or something that I would want to do. But you know, things have changed, and obviously in the last like 2 or 3 years, I've grown a lot as a person and kind of wanted to explore different things. So going into corrections was more of like a let's try it out. We'll see how it goes. I know that it's also a way of helping people. I know that when I did my interviews, I was told by our captain that it's something that's like that being a correctional officer is something that I guess is not really not looked highly upon, but like it's more of like an underrated thing, because you don't really get the appreciation for what you do.
Right.
Because yeah, I mean yeah, like you're just basically taking care of the inmates at jail, but I mean there are people in there that kind of want to like make an impact. And I know that like if for me, if I want to my biggest thing is I want to like hopefully one of those inmates, I don't know if because there's people that come in and out and like you can't really change them,
Right.
but try to get to one person and try to like influence them to become like a better person. And like I know that they're maybe in there for something bad, and like because they were with the wrong group of people, or like they surround themselves with like they were surrounded by like a negative area
Mm-hmm.
environment, so that's how they grew up to become. So if they had like that one person that tells them like, hey, like you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, there's another option that you can take, you know, was it the road less traveled per se,
Right.
that they can take that road and then like become like better themselves. And then maybe like in the future, like I don't know, I'll see them out there doing something else and doing that same thing, like trying to help someone else. And then it just, you know, keeps going on and on. But that's just for me. I just
Right.
want to see like the good in the world, because with all the negativity that's going around, you know.
So one thing that's helped me is obviously a big thing in law enforcement is, the prejudice actions or the judging people, right?
Mhm.
Which is weird because this is a job where we often have to judge people
Exactly.
and make that calculated decision. So it's kind of weird how we're told not to, but we have to at the same time.
Yes.
I think it's more for media things, it's like, oh, don't do this, but let's be real. In certain areas, wherever you might live, you're going to have to make certain judgments in order to make the logical call based off whatever information you already know.
Mhm.
And that's our life, right? But I do my best to not judge people, and you slightly touched on this right now,
Mhm.
because the road they picked, yeah, they chose to go down that road.
Mhm.
But I think of myself, if I were given those exact same circumstances, and I was in that,
That might be the only option.
yeah, that might have been the only option. Another thing is I like the, so you studied psychology, and I
Mhm.
also want to touch on that here in a bit
Yeah.
too. And one of the things I've noticed there is people just want to be important,
Mhm.
right? Whether you're a gang member, whether you're taking drugs, whatever you're there for, they're there because deep inside they were doing something they thought was right
Yeah.
and they felt was important. Gang culture is one of those big things that is where I really noticed this. And the gang culture in our jail is obvious,
Mhm.
specifically because we have it spread out and you can see the different cultures. It's almost like going from country to country, right? It's
Mhm.
obvious.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed is the feeling of importance. People that don't really want to be there, but they're there because they are told that they can fulfill a job that will make them important and give them status.
Mhm.
And oftentimes gangs is a lot of that, is the answer for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you've noticed that based off what you do know about psychology. Do you notice that the behaviors these guys tend to have are on purpose, or just because they are kind of following some type of status?
I think I want to say that there's a lot of like I guess like followers in the jail in terms of like the gang culture because like you can tell that some of them are if they weren't like surrounded by like a group of people that are like them in a way that they would not know how to operate or like they would be a little more I
They
guess
feel
you could say
useful
timid.
there, right?
So, yeah, so like they feel like they're fulfilling a purpose by being part of like that gang or like thinking like oh because I'm part of this gang like they have like the security in that gang. So I don't know if it has to do like I guess like a mental thing, you know, like fulfilling like the need to be important, to do something. And like if they weren't like gang affiliated or like maybe like those gangs give them something that like they wouldn't have otherwise had like say like they come from like rough background and like you know like they didn't have much growing up and then like they get introduced to this gang's like oh yeah we'll supply you with this we'll like I don't know like say like you didn't have money before we can get you money but this is how you're gonna have to do it and then it's like well I know that this isn't the way I should be getting the money but I mean like I've never had money like they say like they do drugs they like are in the gang that like they like facilitate drugs and like they have like all this money and they're like I've never touched this amount of money before and like maybe it's like you know their mentality changes and they're like oh like I like if this is what I have to do in order to make the money then I'll continue doing it not knowing the ramifications of what they're doing because you know like yeah it might be wrong but in their head they're not thinking about whether it's right or wrong they're thinking of oh like I get a payout from this.
So I love that. And there's a guy in our jail currently, I won't say his name for obvious reasons, but there's a guy currently in our jail and he's a rapper, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone else there.
Okay.
He but he actually like goes out and takes the action to record music and posts it and like he's consistent when he's not in jail.
Yeah.
One of the things that I told him that I don't really know if it really got to him or not, but I did see him act a little differently after I said this to him. I looked at him, I was like, look, dude, I listened to your music. It's actually not bad. Like, it's pretty good music. It sounds well made, well produced. Like, you actually tried. And he was like, well, thank you. And I was like, well, do you mind if I give you some advice? And he was like, yeah, of course. I looked at him in the eye. I said, look, dude, you can either make a lot of money pretending to be a gangster and rap about being a gangster, or you can actually be a gangster. And I tell you, one of those ends with a lot of money, a lot of fortune, getting your family out the hood. The other one ends with someone dying. It's oftentimes you. And that's all I said, and I walked away. And ever since then, he obviously hasn't treated me any differently. In fact, he's been a lot more nicer, I guess, in a way. But it's just one of those things that I think sometimes they just need to hear that. It's like, hey, look, like this is an option, but there's also this option. And as simple as it might sound, a lot of times they don't even think of that option because they're over here thinking of what they already know, right? What they've already been supplied with, and that's the only option they'll ever know. So I find it interesting that you've also noticed kind of some of the same things I've noticed. But moving on, I kind of want to talk about you slightly touched on a lot of different things that you've done before, especially caregiving, a lot of just typical day-to-day things that most people see. Yeah. Going from that typical civilian life to law enforcement, how was that transition?
I'll be honest, like it was not, I don't think like it was a smooth transition. Obviously, like it's completely like I was working at a hardware store and all of a sudden, you know, put in my 2 weeks and then now I'm showing up I'm in uniform, I have a badge, duty belt with all these different like I wasn't given a taser yet, or carrying a baton and all this stuff, and it's like I know my first day, like it was like so surreal, like just walking in there and then having like a JTO, a jail training officer, like by my side at all times, telling me how to run things, and it was just like it was such a surreal experience that I'm like, is this really like something like I guess this is what I'm going to be doing for a while now. And so, like, I was trying to absorb everything, you know, and then like, well, especially on my first day because like I guess I needed DTAC training, so I couldn't really go beyond the booking area, and I couldn't go like go look at the inmates or anything. I'm not supposed to have inmate contact, and like, I mean, now I know that like
they give you like a little more like whoa, like this is serious, like this is more than I thought.
And
it
like
was, right?
just seeing like because obviously I know that you have talked about it with me about like what goes on, like what's to be expected, but like you didn't give me like everything I would expect because like how could you like there's too much, you know, like you leave something like a lot of things out, but just seeing like I'm like, oh, like everything makes sense now. And I know that now working there like I have a different outlook on everything. I basically live there like with the shifts that we work. Like it's giving me a different outlook on like how certain things are. Like now, like whenever I go anywhere, like I was in Sacramento a little bit ago, and like they had the police just like kind of like patrolling the area, just making sure everything was like cool, code 4 and everything. And like the way that like I kind of like look at law enforcement now, like there's a lot more spectrum where now I understand. Now that I'm like, and
Yeah.
I'm not in patrol, but I still understand like different things, like why they do certain things, like what they're looking out for. When it comes to like wanting to arrest people or like making sure they're safe, and I'm like, oh, like that could be like a public intoxication charge, or oh, like they're on
Yeah.
some sort of different drug. I think they should get them on was it under the influence of a controlled substance. I'm like, wow, why am I thinking about this? And then I just realized because this is what I'm surrounded by now. So
Yeah.
I know that
It's almost like having a different language, right?
It is, yeah.
Like you learn one way of life your whole life, and then you're like, whoa. Like I didn't even know this
Yeah.
is like existed, and then you start talking differently, you start acting
Exactly.
differently, and
we use
people are
10
like,
code a
"What?"
lot. We tell, oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're 10.8 right now. I'm like,
I love using
the
10
fuck?
codes. I'll speak in just straight 10 codes sometimes,
Yeah.
and people are like, "What are you saying?"
I'll do that with my girlfriend too. I'll just
Yeah.
be all like, "Hey, is everything code 4?" Or I'll be all like,
She's like,
what's your 20?" And then she'd be like, "What?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, your 20 is your location."
So, you would say that obviously the social life has changed as well, right? So the way you look at things on a day-to-day basis, whether you're at a party, whether you're going to Walmart, you have, especially in the area we're in, since it's so small, a lot of times, depending on what you do in the jail, when you leave the jail, there's a target on your back.
Exactly. That's why, like, I know that, like, whenever like I'm out anywhere, like my girlfriend's like, "Why are you like always like scanning? Like, you know, like you're aware of your surroundings." I'm like, because you never know, like who I might know that like might have a personal vendetta against me.
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, you're officer, blah blah blah." Like I know that like you didn't give me my commissary on time. I'm gonna freaking pull out a shank on you. I don't know, like just something like that, or like I rubbed them off the wrong way because I did one thing that they did not
Right.
like, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, no. Once I get out of here, I'm going for him."
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's not only that, but like just the way you work and function in the jail, right? Especially in, let's be honest, like close quarter areas, anywhere you go, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a pod setting, whether it's cell by cell, whatever it might be, it's like you have to have a different level of hypervigilance.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that word is
Yeah.
Arthur uses, but like, yeah, no, I'm always like wary because especially like of some stuff that happened recently.
Yeah.
I think you already know what I'm talking about, but
Right.
you always got to be like careful of the people around you because they're not your friends. They at the end of the day, like yeah, like they might be nice with you, they might respect you, but they're not your friends.
They're not.
And you shouldn't treat them that way. You know, you have a job to do, and yeah, like you can like help them out a bit. You know, like. Yeah, you can't be an asshole all the time, but you can't be like super lenient because if you're super lenient, then that's what they're gonna expect from you, and then you can't change your ways because they're like, "Oh, what's going on? Why are you changing your ways all of a sudden?"
Well, it's hard because a lot of times it's like I'd rather just be safe than sorry.
Yeah,
And I'd rather just like, a lot of times you don't tell the difference of whether they're trying to manipulate you and get you to do something or if they're genuinely wanting to build a relationship, right? And
Yeah.
oftentimes when we see these guys more than we see our own families,
Exactly.
you know, when we're working 16 hours a day, well, at least 12 hours a day, and we're sleeping for 8 of it, you know, we don't have time to really see our family. We see them more than we see our family.
Yeah.
For the most part. It's hard to not build some type of connection, right? Or some type of like, again, not like a friendly connection, but like, hey, like I know who this person is. I quite literally almost know everything about him, right? In terms of background and who he is now,
Yeah.
and what he's done in the past. So it's hard to not really like build that connection at times and almost slip up and kind of not give
Treat him
anything
as a
away.
friend, yeah.
But yeah, treat him like a little too not. I don't really know how to explain where that barrier is or what the actual definition to explain that. But you know what I'm trying to say here, right? It's having that connection with these guys when you see them every single day. Like, oh, I know what you need today. I know what you need today. And like they almost become like just regular people.
Yeah.
Which they are.
They are, yeah.
But a lot of times that's what gets people hurt. Other CEOs hurt in other jails or prisons. You know, it's getting too comfortable with these guys and treating them too much like friends and family. When all they wanted along was for you to do that so they can slip up, right?
Exactly.
And I've noticed it already where a lot of people are better than it at others, but there's a lot of guys in there that will, oh, you know, what's up, Al McGarrett, what's up, this and that. You know, they're cool with you for months, and then they finally ask the question. You know, it's like, hey, can you pass this commissary over there? And I'm just like, no. Right? Like straight up just no. And they're like, oh, like why you got to switch up on me like that? And then the just everything switches, right? And then they go to the next guy. You know, they stop talking to you now and they go to the next officer and the next officer, right? Until they can finally get one who does something they're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And we see it happen a lot of times, you know. It's just oftentimes not really talked about. But
Yeah.
kind of going back to like the effect on social life, right? And your view on the world, it's definitely, as you mentioned, affected how you live your day-to-day life, right?
Definitely.
And it's not, I like to touch on this because it's not necessarily like a paranoia, which I realize like some people like to relate it to, like, oh, you're your PTSD or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
But it's one of those things where it's like, no, like this is real.
Yeah.
You know, like I live around this culture, and sometimes it's hard to turn that switch on and off, especially when you're so new.
Mhm.
I had a problem turning it off like completely.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it was on 24/7, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but there are times where like I get off the jail, get off work, and it's like hard to go to sleep, and I would oftentimes wake up really often feeling like I have like almost an adrenaline rush, right? Like you
Actually,
wake
yeah.
up with an
That's
adrenaline
me.
rush, and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
like forgot to do something, or
Mhm.
this person's after me, whatever it
Yeah.
might be, right? And it's kind of crazy how it happened. Now
Mhm.
later on, now that I'm there for,
Mhm.
I mean, this is like my 16th month now. I've been able to manage that a lot better,
Yeah.
especially finding different ways to decompress and kind of let everything out. The better I've gotten at that, the better I've gotten at kind of turning that switch on and off. And I know Arthur's talked about it with us before. It's like that hypervigilant state where you're up here and then you crash down here.
Mhm.
You're rarely right here, where which normal people are, which is healthy.
Yeah.
You're either super high on this adrenaline or you're just crash down low, which both states are completely unhealthy.
Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
being at them in long periods of times
Mhm.
and constantly bouncing in and out, right? It is unhealthy at times. Have you noticed that in your own
I
life?
have, yeah. I know that when you said like sometimes you go to sleep and then like you wake up in like a little bit of like a panic. I've had that happen to me way too many times. Mostly because I think I'm gonna be late for work, but also like I've thought like I'm like keep my head on like a swivel just because you know like what could be happening and
Mhm.
everything. So I know I do that like whenever I'm like off and you know I'm like doing whatever in public. I find myself I'm like why am I like scanning so much? I'm like what am I like am I
Yeah.
paranoid? I'm like no I'm not paranoid. I'm just like at the end of the day you know we work in the field where you know, we get to go home and some people don't.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me is that I want to go home. I want to be able to, you know, be around the, like, still do my job.
Mhm.
And, you know, I have a lot of life behind me or ahead of me because I am really young. So, and I got into the field very young. So, I mean, the longer I'm here, the more, like, I guess there's a little bit more of a risk. I mean, there always is a risk, but you know, the more people get to know me and like maybe like I rub off in the wrong way, like I said earlier, and like they want to put a target on my head.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, like I'm gonna prioritize myself over everybody else. So, you know,
Yeah.
because what am I? I'm no good to the department if I'm not there. You know, so
100%. So you actually kind of slightly answered the next question. It's how have you seen your skills and corrections actually translate to your own life? And what can you maybe just teach like a normal person that has nothing to do with the field, skills that you've learned in the jail?
I think that's a really good question. I think I'll just break down in terms of like different like instead of like a social aspect, maybe like it teaches you like how to communicate with people because some people just don't know how to talk to people. I think you know you see like we have certain CEOs that like how they talk to the inmates and like how say, like someone who's been there for a really long time, say like you know like the like you said like the people that have been there for 4 or 5 years, how they talk to the inmate compared to like me or like someone who like because I'm not the only rookie there, but like, we have a bunch of different rookies, but like how they speak to people. And when I talk to some of the CEOs that have been there for a little bit, they're like, I don't like the way that this person talks to them because like, again, like they are a person, but like the way they talk to them is like they're like commanding them to do stuff.
Right.
I know I had a conversation with one of our CEOs that has been there for a while, and he works on a shift with someone who's newer. And then he's like, yeah, I don't like the way that he talks to them because like obviously like he gets a lot of backlash from the inmates or like the inmates will always say something about this person because of the way that he is. Like, you know, I don't know if it's poor training. I don't know if it's just because of the person, the way he is or how he thinks he should be.
Personality,
but,
yeah.
the personality thing, but it's, you shouldn't be talking to them like that, you know?
Right.
Like,
I think
if you reword the things you say or like you give it a different aspect, maybe you can get what you want out of them.
Right. So what I see there is like so you mentioned how when you walked into the jail for the first time with your badge, you know, your patches, your belt, you felt almost, I would relate this to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but almost like a, you know, like the God complex, right? Where you're just like, whoa, like I have a different sense of power now and I need to learn how to control this.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can't abuse this power, right? And now I have more responsibility with this power. But there's people where it's different, right? They get that same feeling, but then they run with it and they take it to a whole different level that they shouldn't be doing it, right? And they feel like they're completely just better and above all these guys.
Yeah.
When oftentimes the best way to get what you need done there is to get on these guys' level, right? Which is normal people level, which is what we all are.
Yeah.
You know, it's not seeping down to their level. You are just staying on the normal person level and communicating with human beings. Because when we're talking to humans, we need to talk to them like they're humans.
Exactly.
They're not dogs. You know, we're not gods. We're all people. Before we're Americans, before we're COs, before we're black, white, gay, whatever it might be, we're humans, and
Yeah.
we need to treat each other as such.
Exactly.
In the jail, outside the jail, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's so good to have like that cordial relationship with the inmates, because at the end of the day, they are people. I mean, I'm in no position to say whether they're right or wrong for what they did.
Right.
They broke a rule or a law. That's why they're there. I'm not there to determine whether they're right or wrong. That's what the justice system is for. You know,
Yeah.
that's why we have courts. They're the ones that tell you whether you're right or wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just there to.
We're just
you
the
know,
guys keeping
We're just
you guys
there.
safe.
Just like you're there because you know you need to talk to the courts, and whether what you did was right or wrong, you know you can deal with that. That's why we have lawyers. That's why we have
Yeah.
judges. That's why we have all that. So just we're just here to like provide you like a decent living while you determine whether like okay you're found
Safe
not
and
guilty. Okay,
humane
now you can go back to do with your life. And if you're found guilty, then yeah, you're guilty, and you have to face the consequences of what you did.
Right. What's your biggest life lesson you've learned in the jail?
There's a lot of different walks of life. I know that before the jail, like you can see everybody, like there's people who like engineers, there's doctors, there's and I know that there's like criminals, or yeah, I guess we can call them criminals, that they just don't learn, and they just keep coming in and out of jail. They're always like they're always in run what is it? They're always like in contact with law enforcement. So those people don't change. But now that I'm in the jail, like there's a whole lot of different walks of life. Like everybody there, like they might be like grouped in like certain categories, but everybody there is like they have their own life, and what they did like might be similar to what someone else did, but it wasn't the exact same thing. Like they had like different walks of life. What they did came from all the decisions they made in their past, and it's just crazy to think about like all like the different kind of like stories that you can hear from some of these inmates that are willing to give it to you, because there's some people that are just like nuts.
They don't
in the
care,
head.
right?
Yeah, they don't care. Like they're just there to do their time and leave. But the ones that are like they're there because they broke a law or like they did something wrong, but like they have like a head on their shoulders per se. Like you can have a conversation with them, and like you can learn something. Like like you gotta take it with a grain of salt, but like some of them, like they genuinely have like good information that you can like learn from them, and like they're I should be treating them as like as an inmate, but still like they at the end of the day they are a person as well. So I can take what I can take what they give me with a grain of salt, but still like okay, maybe I can try to apply that, and then maybe they're right, and I'll let them know like, hey, like what you told me, like that kind of was right, like I'll give you that, but like just don't think that we're
and
I'm treating them different now.
Like we just talked about, right? Like there's a lot of these guys that they made a mistake, man.
Yeah.
Like we get it. Okay. We all make mistakes. Yours was a little worse than some of the other ones that we make, right? Or you just got caught.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of these guys had good lives up to a certain point, right? Like that wasn't supposed to be their path.
Yeah.
But they took an easy way out. And I've talked to many guys in there about this, right? And there's people where I genuinely believe they will be better when they get out.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, it's 10, 15 years later, and I pray that they stay the same way wherever they go, right? And they keep that same mindset. And you can see the guys who are actively, trying to get better, right? They're buying books that are going to actually help them. They're kind of staying away from the bad groups of people. They're following the rules, and they're genuinely helpful human beings to society. Yeah. Right? And it's just oftentimes, again, they got tripped up on something that they were peer pressured to get into because their family's in it, or because they just wanted to make the quick buck, whatever it might be, right? And they got caught. Yeah. So there's people in there that's like, there's a lot to genuinely learn from. A lot of good guys in there that, again, I pray that they just stay on that right path when they get out. So it's interesting to see the differences. Mm-hmm. Would you say that our current standard in jail facilities is good enough to help these guys when they get out? Are we really doing enough?
I think it's I feel like it's a case by case thing. Like I feel like we supply them with different kind of like not outlets, but like we supply them with different things. I can't think of a word that I want to use, but
programs.
We give them like programs. We give them kind of like I don't really want to say facilities, but in the terms of like we give them like stuff,
tools.
Like they could, tools that they can use. But I feel like we should. Some of them are like kind of like we have like a law library, like it's cool and everything, but like sometimes like we should also like we supply them with like a laptop to look up like case like stuff that can like be useful for them in terms of like maybe beating their cases, because some of them are in there for like they were wrongfully arrested, or like there's a certain aspect of like what happened that like on another case is very similar and they beat it, so like they think that they should be able to. So but like our computer's always like sometimes down, like there's issues with it, like people.
Do you think it's just technical issues, or do you think it's like maybe a culture issue, then maybe we can possibly help these guys actually change their lives, right? Because
I think so.
I think when people come in, it's the same process every time. It's
Yeah.
a system, which makes our job easier.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there is other steps we could be taking that will make the job more difficult for
It
us.
would, yeah,
But
be helpful for them.
will also help them. And I think in the
Mhm.
long term, like 10, 15 years later, it will make the next generation of CEOs their job easier.
Yeah.
So it just really comes to who wants to take the hit, right? Are we
Mhm.
willing to take the hit now and suffer for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
For the next 5 to 10 years, so the next people have it easier,
Mhm.
right? It's like that movie, Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
right? Where they go into this, they're on this mission and they run into like the opposition, right? And
Yeah.
then I believe it's Tom Hanks. It's like, no, one of the other guys in there that's like, this isn't our mission. We should go around them. And Tom Hanks is like, no, otherwise the next guys behind us will have to go through them. Right. So it's kind of that, let's take the hit now, sacrifice who we can now, and not actual sacrifice,
Mhm.
but, go through that hard work now so that other people don't have to do it later. So ultimately we can actually fix the community. Because I think right now
Mhm.
the jails are like the quick fix. It's
Yeah.
the pit stop for the prisons. It's the place where people come into, okay, you did this bad thing. You're going to be here for this time. And these are the rules. And then when
Mhm.
you go out, you go back to doing exactly what you were already doing anyway.
Exactly, because we don't give them like enough resources to kind of like rehabilitate
Right.
themselves. Like
And-
yeah, like
yeah.
they some people can get out early and like go into programs that are supposed to help them with
We don't
that. But
actually
why don't
change-
we?
We don't actually change their habits.
Yeah.
It's like they're in there and they're thinking the same thing, which, again, I like that you did psychology. Maybe you can help me out with this, but
Mhm.
it's, that saying that 21 days or a month builds a habit.
Mhm.
There's oftentimes people in there that are there for a year,
Yeah.
but they come out with the same habits.
Because you don't give them different habits to kind of like help them out.
Right. You don't give them that
Yeah.
ability and the actual chance to change, right?
Yeah,
We want to say that we're trying our best.
Mhm.
We're doing all these things. We're giving them church. We're letting them exercise, but there's no real solid way to actually get these guys to show. It's like, hey, there's a different opportunity out here.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, even if we did try our best, I believe we could change more.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 out of every 100 more, which is still one more than
Yeah.
than the other option.
Mhm.
But a lot of times you got to understand that these are the county jails. A lot of times they're going to be released right out to the same city that they were already in,
Mhm.
right out to the same people they were already communicating with, right out to the same drugs
Yeah.
and weapons that they were already dealing with.
So I don't know if like maybe people have thought about that, like, oh, maybe we should provide them with like a little more kind of like opportunities to kind of rehabilitate themselves. But like they've also thought like, well, they're going to the same people. Like, who's to say like we're gonna invest all this money and do all these things for them, and then they go out and like just turn around and be like the same person they were when they came in there. But at least you give them the opportunity to,
Right.
Because like
It's
you
also
said,
hard when
one
we-
out of 100
yeah.
people. Like if you got like at least one person, like would that be a waste of funding? At least you turned one person, and that's like the worst case scenario. You turn one person, but you can turn way more. You won't know until you try it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe also it's like a funding thing too, because like
I was
know
just
that
about to say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
It
like
doesn't
they
help when
have
they
the
don't want
money
us
to
funded.
do that. Yeah, like maybe we don't have the facilities, we don't have the funding to provide those kind of things. But somebody's like, hey, like why don't we? And then the short answer they gave them was like, well, we don't have the money.
And then they question why, right?
Yeah.
But then those are the same people that are like, oh, you need to treat these guys more humane. You need to help them out because they go back and do the same things. Well, it's like, where's the money? You guys been telling us for the past 10 years to defund us.
Yeah.
So we don't get the money anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
So if
A
you
lot
really
of
want
people
to
say
help
that.
us change these lives, like, we need the funding and we need your support as a community to actually believe in us.
It's like a
and
lot of
trust us.
hypocrisy. Like they was like, oh, like money's going to jails. They're not even doing their jobs. And then when like there is no money and like they're they're like, oh, well, you need to give them more money to do what they need to do. And it's like, well, you're the same person that said like you should defund us. Like why?
Yeah.
Like why are you all of a sudden like switching up? Like they always want like the best outcome, but like everything you see is negative. Like they like, oh, like they don't want to believe that the money they're putting is actually being used for good things.
Yeah.
Um,
I like to say, like, well, why don't you come on in with us and see how we
Exactly.
do the job, right?
Yeah.
And see if you can make it better with what we already have.
yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, it's going to take a lot of work.
Mhm.
And it's going to take that one county to actually do it. And hopefully I can have enough influence with what we're doing here
Mhm.
to make that difference here in our own county, in our own community, to actually be that one county that all the other surrounding counties are like, oh, wait, look what they're doing.
Mhm.
Let's do that. And then the counties around them, let's do that.
Yeah, and then
eventually
it's all a big thing, and hopefully it goes spread out to all of California. So then, like, it not fix all of the issues because every county has
There's
like,
always
their
gonna
own
be
separate
issues.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
but at least it
yeah.
makes it. They have like a baseline for like what works, and I obviously like each county can fine tune it. Like maybe what we're doing isn't gonna work for Sutter. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not gonna work for everyone North View,
Yeah.
YOLO, SAC, all that. But at least they can have like a basis that can work for almost everyone. I know it can't
Yeah.
work for everybody, but it'll work for most.
I do know there is that one answer, right? And to me, it's culture. It's
Mhm.
changing the culture of the community in general.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes there's certain things in the way, and that can't always be the case, right? We can still happen, but there's certain things that are just blockading other avenues that are keeping us from fully making those changes, and it's hard, and it's going to be a lot of work.
It will be, yeah.
But I truly do believe that it can happen one day.
Yeah.
We just got to actually get there.
Exactly.
I don't know all the
Mm-hmm.
answers. I never will, and I don't
Yeah.
believe any of us really do.
No.
But eventually, with enough trial and error, we just need to learn from our mistakes. That's the problem I think that's been happening in the past 5 years of law enforcement, is we're not learning from the mistakes, right? Like, one of the things is transparency. Yeah, we are being a little more transparent with the body cams and like the interviews and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not really telling people like, look, our job is becoming a lot more difficult because of you guys. Like, we just got to be honest. There's these people. This actually brings up the next question, right? Is doing our job with all these absurd policy changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to do these jobs when they're limiting our abilities to actually do the job.
Exactly, yeah. And like they're training like the nomenclature to make it, I guess, more suitable for the people out there. But it's just hard because I've read through so much policy and everything, and like some of it doesn't pertain to what we do, but it could if I move, say, like the patrol side, because
Mm-hmm.
we're a whole department, you know. Like I can't just learn stuff about the jail and then not know what's going on in the on the outside, you know. Because what if like a lot of people do, they go from being a CO and then they want to go to patrol. Like, are you then going to read the policy, or should you already know the policy? And even then, like, there's so much different, like, I know, like, in the time that I've been there, like, there have been, like, 3 or 4 different policy changes, and it's just, like, I don't know, it just makes things harder just because, like, certain things were done that, like, kind of, like, oh, yeah, we actually need to change this policy because, like, that shouldn't have happened and all of that. And I don't know, I don't think, like, a policy change would have made a difference. I think that if they just, like, tackled
well, all the policies we
yeah.
have is because someone made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
right? And typically the mistake is not identified from within; it's identified from a third party option, right? So it's the family that mistake was done to. Their parent or their people are like, "Hey, why'd you do that to our person in there? Why'd you do this? You shouldn't have done it like this," even though they don't really know the totality of the circumstances.
Exactly.
But it's always that one person, and now the county is like, all right, well, we don't want a big deal. We don't want to pay you $2 million or $3 million for a lawsuit. So you know what? We'll just kiss your ass in a sense and change the policy. Oftentimes that's the case, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how it works out. And it's unfortunate that we do that. But I feel like nowadays with the media and how law enforcement is attacked, there's almost a sense of no choice for a lot of departments.
Mhm.
Although there is, all we have to
Yeah.
do is say no.
Yeah.
You know, all you have to do
You
is
might get the backlash, but
yeah,
still.
but all you have to do is say no. But
Mhm.
oftentimes they don't want to risk that.
Exactly, because then like it puts like a bad, like I guess stature on their name, and it's like, oh, it's easy like to just like make the policy change and just like appease the other people than to
Yeah.
actually tackle it head on and be all like, no, like this is how
It's
things
a
should be,
whole different
and that's
problem in
how it
itself.
is. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you want to be the difference of it, I mean, like yeah, like it's tough that happened to you, you know, but you gotta look at the ramifications of everything that led up to that point of whatever mistake, quote unquote, was taken, because it could. Yeah, I'm not gonna say like every mistake is a good mistake, but maybe the mistake that happened was because like it had to happen. Or,
Exactly.
You know, like people are entitled to slip ups because like we say, like with the inmates, they made a mistake. You know, it
Yes.
happens. Everyone makes a mistake. We're not perfect. Like you're gonna hold that. You know, the officers are like they've made
Right.
20 years of great decisions. They make one bad decision. You're gonna discount everything all the good stuff that they did.
All the lives that they changed, right?
Exactly.
They
You
made
know?
one person upset, and it's
Yeah.
like all of a sudden a bad thing. Yeah, and the thing is, it happened one time, and then it happens again, then it
Mhm.
happens another time, and it becomes so much easier for people to win these debates, right? And it's the same thing with like these guys in jail, right? It's like when they ask for something that they shouldn't have, it's like no, because if I give that to you, then I have to give it to him, then
Mhm.
him, and him, and him, and
Exactly.
then all these different
It's like, but
privileges.
they don't gotta
that-
know. It was like, but still, like, like you know, like people in the jail, like their classifications, they change all the time. So
Yeah.
that one person I did something for can end up in a different classification. But oh yeah, the officer, whatever, let me do this. So you can ask him to do that because he'll do it for you. And then one, like you know, they may have good intentions, but then the other person that they tell, like yeah, I'm gonna hide something in there, and then he'll definitely pass it because
it's
he
just
let
the
you pass it.
inconsistency of
Yeah.
everything, right? And
Mhm.
continuing to let some things pass and not things pass, and people inside the jail, outside the jail, just keep walking all over. You know, I don't want to say just the jail in general, but law enforcement in
Mhm.
general, right? It's just being walked on, and it
Yeah.
used to not be that way.
No, exactly. Like you know, like I know that you mentioned it with Arthur, but like the whole warrior versus guardian, like you need there's a lot of people that need a little more warrior in them. You know, like you can't just like let things go. You can't be like that guardian. You have to actually like be like the warrior. You gotta like actually tackle certain things. And, like,
then what are we
stand up
there
for
for? You
exactly,
know,
because if we're just there to like be their friends and like help them out with anything, then fuck it. Like, why are we locking them? Why are we putting barriers? Why are we classifying these people? You know, like if we're just gonna let them run rampant and do what they want, then what's the point of?
To me nowadays, I know it's super extreme, but it's like almost like, don't do that. To tap on the wrist, don't do that. Oh, sorry. Like we're the ones that are. It should be flipped. A lot of times it's them running the jail without us really realizing that, and that's not how it should be. And it's the same thing on the road a lot of times, and that's a culture around the country. Just because things are becoming so easily manipulated with the media, that people are just like. Law enforcement is on their knees begging to
exactly, or like with like the whole like media thing, like why like people are looking down on law enforcement. It's kind of like forcing law enforcement to kind of have to become more like guardian, more like become more softer. When in reality, like
which is why you see a lot of them dying, unfortunately.
Like our jobs are to it's law enforcement. You're enforcing laws. Like there's means that you have to do in order to enforce those laws. And like not now people are gonna agree with it, but that's what you have to do, because now you see like if you soften them up, then because of like fear of losing their job or like fear of like because they have to follow a certain policy or what they have to do, they have to take a step back instead of like fully like tackling the problem as it is. And then you again, like they might like die, they might get hurt, they might get injured, and then it's like, well, then when we look at it, it's like, well, you did the right thing, but now look at, we're a man down, we're two men down because like you had to do a certain thing because of what the media is saying that you have to do or how things should be, when in reality like most of the people in the media don't know what's going on
at all
in our communities or what goes on in law enforcement or like what we have to do in order
they
to
read one
enforce the laws.
news headline, all of a sudden they're experts.
Exactly.
It's just crazy to me. But so with your time in the jail, have you noticed that this job is more physical or mental?
I think it's a mental thing.
In terms of like stress, like the actual stress of it. What do you feel the most?
I would say, and for mental, would you say more of, because I know you're saying physical and certain stress, but mental would be like...
no, my bad. Let me reword that. So the actual neurological stress, right? Do you feel like it's more physical on the body? Like let's just make this a little more simple. Do you feel more tired because of how physical the job is, or tired because of how mental the job is? Because either way, we're tired.
Yeah, we're always tired, with the long hours, especially like holding over.
Yeah.
I would think that, I think it's more of like a mental toll. Like I think physically, like I'm fine. But in terms of like a mental capacity, like I'm always tired because of like just like the things that I have to like consider, and like with everything, like trying to remember how to do things by policy. I'm like, oh, is that right? How am I doing that? And like so when like whenever like I come home, like I'm just like, I don't know, like it just takes its toll like mentally. And like I know that I noticed that with like I guess my loved ones and like the people I'm surrounded by, like my friends and family. Like I feel like I've changed definitely because of this job, and I think it's more of like a mental toll because like I don't really feel it physically.
Is that a negative thing?
I think it might be, but it's just because like I think I inevitably I was gonna change because of this job. Like I can't be like the same person I was when I was working at like a hardware store, being a correctional officer. Like I've had to change, and like I think it's because of like how new it is, because I've been only in the department for 6 months. So it's more of like it's a slow transition to like my life is like this now. This is how things have to be. I don't have as much time as like I know that like my parents want me to help out like my relatives that are over in the Bay Area with something, because like I have like handyman skills per se. Like they want me to know, like, can you help them like change like the deadbolts and the knobs? They don't know how to do it. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but you don't understand that I have a job to do, and like I got to prepare myself. I can't just like go free willy-nilly like doing what I want and like not give time to better the craft, because I do want to grow in this job.
So I condone you for being here today, because again, this is your day off.
Yeah.
And I know you actually got to have a break this past weekend, which is nice. We always love when that happens.
Yeah.
It's just when we have our days off, we want to have our day off.
Exactly.
You know? And it's hard to do like other activities, whether it's with your girlfriend, for me, with my wife and the new chapter in my life that's going on right now.
Yeah.
Having a kid, learning to balance all these things, and also doing this.
Yeah.
This big thing and my big plan for this, and where I wanted to take this, like, we're going to be tired. We're going to be stressed. And especially because we plan on doing big things with our lives.
Yeah.
Whether that's just you or me, whether it's in the career or it's outside the career expanding, such as this.
Exactly.
Which is why I really appreciate you being here, because this is your time. And you're going to be going back to work here in 2 days?
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Because
you made it.
Because I made arrangements. Right? So yeah,
that's another thing is this thing's always changing, right? Like we have to work our hours. We have to switch with people. We have to come in early. Things are always inconsistent. As consistent as we want it to be, as consistent as they tell us it's going to be, it's really not.
It's not. No,
everything is different.
Yeah, you might be coming in.
This job is literally the definition of nothing's ever the same.
Every week has been different. The only consistency that I had was when I was on training, because I knew the days I was working.
They made you.
They made me it's like, well, you know what? I might not get my early, but you have to get your early. So you're leaving at 2:00 or you're leaving at 2 a.m. Whatever shift I'm on. I got lucky that I got to stay on the same side of the week. I didn't get you're on this side of the week, then you're changing to this side, now you're going back to this side. I stay on the same side. I might have gone from days to nights, but I stay on the same side.
But now
basically.
It's everywhere. You've noticed with me in the past 2 weeks, they put me one place, they put me another place.
Exactly. You're on this side of the week. Oh, you need to come in for this shift. Oh wait, actually, you know what? You need to come in for this hour on this shift with this person.
And it's kind of getting used to that actual law enforcement culture. The few things that have stayed the same is a lot of the seniority toll, right?
Yeah.
It's you're at the bottom. Right now you're not the bottom, but you're down there.
Pretty much down there.
You just got at least I moved up a number since I've been
exactly,
a few numbers, but yeah, it's a lot that we're constantly just stressed with every single day, and especially when you want to do things outside of the job, it's hard to sometimes fully enjoy and embrace what you're doing outside, when you're with your girlfriend or your family members, just because you're always kind of recovering in a sense.
It is, sometimes I'll go straight onto a date with my girlfriend right after having worked at the jail, so I'm already in a certain mindset, dude. And then they're they're trying to get because there's work me and then there's me outside of work. I'm usually a pretty outgoing person. I'm hella funny, or I think I am. I'll just be cracking jokes and everything and making some stupid remarks, but then I can't be doing that when I'm at the jail. Sometimes I don't want to break the boundaries of what I have, because I don't want to have them see what I'm on the outside, on the inside, so I gotta have work me, and sometimes that work me does not wear off when we're out on our date, and then be why are you acting like that, or why are you prioritizing certain things over me, have be with me in the moment. I can't, because I had just gotten off work, I'm still trying to
that period
of with the hypervigilance, and then you're coming down, and it's I'm still coming down from my hypervigilance, give me some time, I'll still try to be the Philip or that you love and know, and the reason why we're together. But
that's tough, especially you're doing after a graveyard shift, and I just did graveyard for 6 months. That sucks.
It is but it's not I'm going straight into it, but I'll give myself maybe 3 or 4 hours to rest, because
that's not enough though.
It's not enough. I'll I know that what the last shift I worked was on Friday, and it goes into Saturday. So then Saturday I obviously had a date with my girlfriend, so I took some time to sleep, so give myself some rest. But when I came out, I was kind of out of my hypervigilance, but I'm still a little in it. And then I was certain things were pissing me off, because these there are certain things I have to be pissed off about, or I have to be be a little more on my guard while I'm at the jail, because I can't let things pass. I can't be super nice. I have to be strict. I have to be that warrior.
The presence.
I have to, but I can't always be like that in a relationship sense, because why am I being a warrior? I'm not trying to enforce something onto to my girlfriend.
That's where
I
you're
can
taking
be that guardian.
That's where you're taking those warrior skills and converting them into that more guardian, and now you're using some of those skills you use to protect yourself, but to protect the others around you.
Exactly. That's why I'm always looking around.
Interesting.
And I know I
never
recently
thought of it
got a CCW, so my girlfriend's still getting used to it. She's why are you always carrying? And I'm I'm probably super young with this, but there's a reason why. At the end of the day, the short answer is that I want to make sure you go home. I want to make sure I go home. And if something were to ever happen, I don't want to use it. That's I don't have it because I fear for my life. I have it because if something ever goes down and I need to use it, I have that. Because there's a number of people that outside law enforcement, there's good Samaritans, they have good lives. They're kind of similar to me. They want to go home. They want to be able to build the career that they have. They want to be able to have the opportunity to do that, and they don't have that because somebody, a criminal that shouldn't have had access to a weapon, decides to shoot them. Why? Because what they said something wrong with them, oh, you coming in line, blah blah blah, whatever it is. But
it's for stupid stuff sometimes too. I love that you said that. And one thing that I haven't really told many people ever really is, but one of the things that I do, kind of part of my morning routine or pre-work routine, is at least once a day I'll tell myself, whatever the situation might be, let's just go ahead and say I wake up for work because we have to be at work at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Our day shift. Before I get into cross that jail door, right, that first door, I say, we all go home today.
Yeah.
No matter what, whether it's the first thing I do when I wake up, whether it's right before I walk through that door, but any time in between, we all go home today. I have that time of peace and quiet because you never know, that might be the day we don't go home.
Yeah.
But it's going to do the best of my ability every single day to make sure that happens. Even on my days off. You know, if we're going out late at night just for a date and it's supposed to be a good time and I'm going to have the best time I possibly can, we all go home today. Exactly. Whether that's me, whether that's her, whether that's the civilian, I have no idea who they are. We all go home today.
Yeah.
I think it's important we have that. All of us, in some sense, have that mindset, whether you're in law enforcement or not. We all got to go home.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
A few more things that I want to just say. I know we've been on for an hour, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but what do you think is the number one skill you need in corrections? Now that you've been there long enough and kind of helping the next guy in line, right? What is the number one skill you believe you need in corrections?
I want to say, like, just because of, like, the things you're dealing with, you gotta have, like, I think maybe I can delve into it, but, like, people skills. You gotta understand, like, how to interact with others, or what would they call it? Sociology, like isn't that like study of like how people operate? But anywho,
you
like,
know more about that than I do.
Basically, like, you gotta know how to like talk with people because, like I said earlier, like there are a lot of people that they like a lot of CEOs that they don't know how to talk to people, or like they don't know like the basics or how the advanced ramifications of like how you should be like speaking with someone, like if someone's one way, like how you should be, I guess, like trying to get them to understand things from your perspective, because like you're not going to get everybody to understand like what you do, but at least you can try to get like a mutual understanding where like you know what, I don't understand what this person's talking about, but at least they're like trying to level with me,
So
I think
the communication
I just like just trying to interact with people, because that's what your main thing is, not just like the inmate, but you're also interacting with your coworkers. You got to know how to speak with them or how to relay information to them, because like we do Passover, or our pass downs. You got to know like how to communicate certain things, because if you leave something out and then something happens because you didn't pass that over to the person, and like you forgot, or like what you said was like, oh, I think I know what they meant, but then it's like, oh, that's what they meant, and then now it's like a whole like problem because you weren't able to effectively communicate with them.
One thing I kind of want to add to that is just this job is more of making people understand where you're coming from, not making people do what you want them to do, right? It's just, hey, this is why this is happening, and this is why we all need to work with each other to make this happen.
Exactly.
So what would you say is the biggest difference between, I guess, real life and like what you see in the movies?
I want to say like in the movies or like shows, because like have you
ever watched End of Watch?
No, but I've been told I should watch that.
Definitely watch
that. And I've also been told, what was it called? Is it The Rookie? I think I should.
Rookie is a pretty decent show.
Yeah,
it's definitely more of like that
patrol side.
With patrol, but also more of just like it's a show. It's
I don't know. I was told by one of our sergeants to watch it, and it's like, you haven't watched it, like it has to be homework. You have to watch it, and like it'll give you a better understanding of like how things operate if you watch it. I'm like, okay, I'll add to my list, I guess. Wait, what was the question?
What's the difference between like movies and?
I guess in movies, like I don't know if they want to be like more appeasing, like kind of like downplay, or in like a law enforcement sense.
Do you think it's just more of like the story side of things? Like you were talking about how life is like in the jail for us, right? Like how we communicate with inmates and how we communicate with coworkers. But in the movies, obviously, it's more of like makes us look like the friendly neighborhood cops.
In a way, yeah. Actually, that does make sense. Like I feel like they have to leave certain things out because like they can't cover every single situation that happens, say like in a jail or.
But do you think that's kind of changing how the outside world views us?
I
how
think
like
so, yeah.
A lot of times we see as like, oh, look at these cops and the love stories they have in jail, or like the friendly neighborhood cops they're supposed to be, but oftentimes it's not always just the case.
It's not, because like every situation is different. Like there's some situations where that can happen, but there's others where like you said earlier about like we have to like have certain prejudice, we have to have certain like ideas about like certain people that we see because of like actions from the past that kind of have led us there, that we have to act a certain way, and we can't be that way with those people just because like we know from the past like you can't, because you have tried to be like that and it just doesn't work.
That's perfect. That's exactly, we're on the same level there. So that's all I have for you today.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to share with you or talk to you about today. I'm glad that you came here and gave us your time, and I hope that one day this helps another CO coming
Exactly, yeah. And then I
in the
think
line.
last note I want to put in there, but I know that
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
with all like the animosity that goes around with like law enforcement, I
Mhm.
think like whatever media portrays. I know Arthur touched about it as well. Like you always see like that 30-second clip of like something bad that happens and that's what sells, but you don't
Yeah.
see like the thing that leads up to it. So everyone has like this bad idea what law enforcement is, but like you said, like go into it. Maybe like do a ride along, get experience it before you form an opinion about it. Because if you just form everything that you see on social media, you're always gonna have a bad opinion about law enforcement.
'Cause
Because that's all that goes around.
that's
Is that
all
law
it is,
enforcement is bad? We
exactly.
need to defund the police. We need to, put that money towards different things. But if you just maybe just see what's going on, you understand like why
Right.
like we need the funding. Like if we had the resources to give people opportunities, like especially in the jail,
Mhm.
like they could be like better people. I can't guarantee that's what's gonna happen, but at least that's what you can believe that will happen. You gotta trust that like we're
Yeah.
having the best interests at their heart, and they will use those resources to best their ability. Because sometimes that's all they need is that resource that's not like a gang affiliation where they're gonna do bad things or
Yeah.
being surrounded by like poverty and crime, and that's all they see, so that's all they get into. If we give them a resource that they can actually use to become better people,
Maybe they'll be better people.
they will be better people.
Yeah, I agree with that. All you see on the news and media is negative stuff because negative stuff sells, and it's more catchy. And it's just, I mean, let's be honest. If you believe everything the media and the social media says, there's a different problem for yourself there that you need to
Exactly.
figure out about you. So just
Mhm.
be more skeptical about what you see on there because I promise you everything's not bad.
Yeah.
There's definitely good people out there. There's also bad people out there, whether you're in position of power or not. There's going to be all different realms of life everywhere, and you're going to see it in every aspect of life that you're in, not just law enforcement.
Exactly, but everything you're in,
Everything, so.
whatever it is.
Anything else?
So other than that, yeah, just change your mind on how or for the people that aren't in law enforcement or like the things you see, just don't believe everything you see. Like there are good people in law enforcement, and I want to say like believe you and me. Like I want to make a difference, you want to make a difference. We want to be those people that change the kind of like the outlook on how people look at law enforcement, or like trying to build these communities to become like greater than they.
Let me
actually
ask
are.
you this before we leave.
Yeah.
So, how much involved in law enforcement were you before you knew me? Because I know once you knew me, you started coming around, hanging out with my family, and
Yeah.
my family's law enforcement based.
Mhm.
Like we have those
Yeah.
people in it. How did that change? When you finally met like my dad or my cousins.
I want to say that like it definitely has changed a whole bunch. Like before, like I wouldn't understand like why certain things are, or like maybe like or like ranking systems. Like what a sergeant is, what a corporal is, or like why like certain charges get these, or like you also get a little bit of law enforcement. You also get like an introduction to like the judicial system, understanding like how they look at certain laws, and like why certain laws, maybe like why certain like charges are more severe than others, or like what severity, like what's like murder's up here, but like what can be above it, like what like all these different levels. It definitely does change, like understanding like what the role of like law enforcement is, like the different kind of like jobs there is, because like I thought law enforcement was always just like police, and like understanding like a sheriff and like a city police, they're two different things, because a sheriff is county, and then you have like a town or city, like so you have like the PDs,
Police officer.
that's yeah, police officers. And like I know like so a lot of people like they mix them up, they call sheriff deputies, they call like the sheriff deputies, they call them, oh, you're a cop. I'm like, no, I'm not a cop, I'm a sheriff.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's like understanding like those like little different things, because I would have thought that they're all the same, I'm like, oh, you're just a police,
Yeah.
or like what exactly your role is, like, oh yeah, you just arrest people, you do reports and all that,
Yeah.
you give people tickets, but there's way more than
one
just
thing that I never had a chance to experience, because I've been around Arthur since I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
Since I've actually been able to be old enough to make my own opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been around it my whole life. So one thing I never had a chance to see was meeting like an authoritative figure that I wasn't like, how would I word this? I guess intimidated by. I don't know how to word it. Or even when I meet other firefighters or other people in first responding, probation officers, whoever it might be, I'm just like, oh, you're one of us.
Yeah.
Even when I was 10 years old, I would think the same thing. Oh, you're one of us. Like, this is our family.
Yeah.
Of first responding. But when other people come in, I notice that they're like, oh my God, like you're a cop, or like you're a firefighter, or you're so special. And like, oftentimes we don't even want to hear that. Like I don't want to hear you talk about how special my job is, or thank you for my service, even though it's like
I have gotten that actually.
I have as well too, but it's just one of those things where it's like, look, man, just talk to me like a human being.
Exactly.
You know,
Like, don't hold me,
I'm
like,
no
don't
one
put me on a
different.
pedestal. You know, like,
Yeah,
whenever,
or
like,
or
yeah.
vice versa. Don't look
Mhm.
down upon me because of my
Yeah.
position. You know, whether that's
Yeah.
public or
Again,
not.
it's another stigma
Yeah.
where, like,
That's why I was
sometimes,
curious.
yeah.
That's why I was curious. I wonder if you were coming in and like, obviously, I don't care what you thought before then, but I wonder
Mhm.
if you were coming in like, oh, like, fuck this cop, or were you like,
No,
you
I've
know?
always had respect for law enforcement because I know, like, at the end of the day, they are doing
I think
a
it's your
job.
culture as well.
It
Let's be
is.
honest. That was my culture as well,
Uh-huh.
also. You know, so
Yeah,
it's like,
I know that, and like, I know that maybe like my parents weren't like when they learned that I was becoming a correctional officer and working for the county, they were like that big, like, oh, like, this is a big thing for you, but it said like, you know, my stepdad sometimes calls my uniform like, oh, your police clothes are in the on the like he
Yeah.
hangs dries them, so like, oh, they're in the garage hang drying. I'm like, well, they're not police clothes. I mean, but still, you know, I understand what he means.
Yeah.
But like, I'm kind of fortunate to be like in like a family that doesn't like have like too much of a bad stigma on like police. But like, I know that like it's not just like my parents like cool with it, but like if I go to like certain relatives, like they might look down upon it. They're like, oh, like all police are bad, and you know, you need to fund the police and everything. And like, that's not the case. You know, like I am in it. You're probably just had one bad experience with the police, or
Yeah.
you probably just believe what you see
That's
on the
normally
media.
all it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I am in it, and I can tell you that maybe some of it might be true, but most of it is not. You know, like they just. There's, you know, you gotta look at all the different sides that, you know, form an opinion. That's why, like, I'm kind of glad that I'm in it now, because I can
You see it from all
yeah,
sides.
I can see it from all sides, and now I can see certain things that are happening,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, well, like, that person's arresting that person. There's probably a system of like what happened, you know,
Yeah.
or, like, people pulling out their phones and just saying like, hey, like, you don't have that, you can't violate his rights. So more likely they don't even know what the rights are. You know, like, they're probably not
Yeah.
violating the rights, but
They
like,
heard
hey,
some TikTok and they were
yeah,
like,
oh, you're violating the rights or something, and I'm like, well, where are they violating? You know, they're doing
Or
the
you
due
just
process and
broke the
everything.
law, you
Exactly,
know?
you broke the law. Just understand you broke the law. You're not gonna get out of it. You got caught. You
And
know?
oftentimes they make it so much worse because they make the deputy or the police officer, like, they make their life so much harder. And what you don't understand is this police officer or deputy probably dealt with this like another person right before.
Yeah.
They're already annoyed. You know, and
Exactly.
it's like they're humans at the end of the day. So
Uh-huh.
you can't be like, again, it's our profession, I understand, but
Yeah.
again, we're also human. So like when we're already dealt with the same person 3 times in a row that is acting that way because of some TikTok they saw, it's like, why are you being so mean to me right now? Why are you treating me like this? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh my God, lady, like, just listen. You broke the law. I stopped you, and this is what's
Exactly.
going
And
on.
some people are trying to like explain that, but it's like they just want to get out of it. You know, they don't want to.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, they maybe they're the same person that's like, oh, like, you know, like there's too much bad. Like they need to be arresting people. Need to be dealing out more tickets. They can't be allowing for certain things. And when they get caught, they're like, oh, like. They tried to play the victim, like, no,
It's
I didn't do
wild.
anything wrong and everything.
Yeah.
It's like, you're the same person that would want that upon others, but you don't want it upon yourself.
One thing I would just wish that people did more with the guys out there, and even us inside, is understand that, again, we are freaking human beings, dude. We all bleed. You know, you never know what type of day they might have had the day before, the call they just had. You know, they work the same hour shifts, or, you know, at minimum those hour shifts. You never know when they first walk on. We had an incident here. You know, it's public information, but the high school down the street,
Yes.
the girl that killed herself at
Yeah.
the school, right? That was at the beginning of someone's shift. So imagine that the beginning of their shift, they had to deal with that. A little girl, what they had to see. And then later on, they have to go talk to little kids at the playground, or, you know, make regular traffic stops with that same image in their head. You know, so I just ask that people are more cautious when they talk to these officers, and they understand, like, hey, we get it when you have a bad day. Please understand when we have a bad day.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, or if they come off a certain way and, like, you know, I don't
Yeah.
know, they're trying to like let them know about something, and then they come off a certain way, like they come very strongly. Understand that, like, maybe like they had come off something like that. You know, you don't know what's going on with an officer's day. Like, they might be like super chill like 1 hour, and then like in that hour something bad could have happened, and then they had just coming off about it, and then you try to have like that same conversation, like, you can't, because they have to, again, like they had just processed something, and like they have to like still like process it and like see, like, you know, like kind of come down from it, but like sometimes you can't come down from it, and that's just the way they are for a little bit.
Yeah. That's why I don't like when people ask officers, like, even with me, I don't really mind it, because I'm just built different, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't like when people are like, what's the scariest thing you've ever done in the jail? Or what's the scariest thing you've ever gone through in the road? Dude, that's equivalent to me asking you, well, what's the most traumatizing thing that you wish you would probably just eat your gun for? You know, and then when you ask a question like that, they're like, oh, my bad. You know, because it's like,
and
that's
now it's not
essentially
a conversation for both of us.
and that's exactly what you're asking. You know, it's like, what's the most traumatizing, brutal thing that keeps you up at night is what you're asking. So I encourage you not to ask questions like that, and please understand that we go through things too, and we have bad days as well.
Exactly. Like, yeah, like just because we're in law enforcement doesn't mean that we are experiencing like worse things than what you're experiencing. Because I'm sure like someone has experienced way worse than I have, and I've probably scraped the surface. But you know, like, but just don't look at it in terms of like what you experience must be a lot worse than what I experienced. No, like we all experience bad things. We all process things differently. It's just it's just the realm that we experience it in.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I won't take up too much of your time.
Of course.
And this is a good episode. This is one of the longest episodes yet. So I hope everyone enjoyed. I hope someone took something. If you learned, if you laughed, if you just like Philip at all, share the show. That's how we're going to grow. I'm never going to run any ads for the show. I just want this to grow word to mouth. Share this to a deputy you might know, a firefighter you might know, and just show Philip some support. Leave a comment down below and rate the show. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, of course.
See ya.